Self-improvement is the hardest journey you will go on. I've been self-improving for about a quarter of my life, and when you first start, they only tell you about the benefits, nothing about the pitfalls that come with it. So in this video, I'm gonna give you guys some tips about how to overcome the unavoidable pitfalls you'll go through. I'm also gonna tell you guys the worst thing that will happen while you're self-improving. And then finally, once and for all, I'm gonna break down the million-dollar question. Is self-improvement worth it? Number one, have you ever had someone talk shit behind your back? Most of the time when it happens, it's the same person who was sitting in your face smiling at you trying to act all buddy-buddy. But the whole time they were sitting behind closed doors with the evil eyes trying to bring about your demise. Well, let me just be honest with y'all boys. You better get used to it, because with self-improvement comes envy and jealousy. You're gonna be hated on for just trying to self-improve and better your life. So once you actually get some real results from your efforts, the people who have hated on you from the beginning are only become more envious because you make them feel inadequate. You make them feel like they're not doing enough. We now live in a time where most of us spend our time comparing ourselves to others to the point that we end up hating ourselves. In order to protect our ego, we find reasons why that person's doing better than us. Oh, he's got daddy's money. Oh, he's lucky. Oh, he's not natty. Oh, he fucked my bed. Bottom line, the list goes on. So when you start looks maxing, you start getting more money, you're gonna start to feel confident in who you are, because you realize how much it took for you to get to this point compared to where you were at down here. And once certain people start noticing that you're more confident in yourself, that's when the hate begins. Once they no longer can figure out who you are or what you're gonna do, you have more power at that point. You become a powerful person because you're unpredictable. When they can't force you to be something that you're not, and they can't have control over you, it makes them enraged because they feel like you're better than them. The reason why you need to be aware of this pitfall is because when people become envious or jealous of you, a lot of times they will do whatever is in their effort to make your life worse. They will try to cause havoc to bring you down to them. This pitfall right here is conventional wisdom. This is exactly how Julius Caesar died. This is exactly how Jesus Christ died, due to envious people trying to stop them from being great. And you have to realize that people who are envious cannot be stopped. They cannot be helped with. You need to avoid them at all costs. You have to realize that envy is like a demon. Once it possesses somebody, it's very hard to get rid of, which leads me to the two types of people who are more prone to being envy. First, it's the people you grew up with. These types of people are way more prone to being envy than anybody else. Like I mentioned, the fact that you're going up and they're staying stagnant kills them. They can't live with the fact that someone's doing better than them. So what they'll try to do is bring you down at any cost possible, regardless of how you treat them. And that's the craziest part too, because these kind of people, you'll try to bring them up with you. You'll try to give them game. You'll try to give them tips. You'll try to bring them to a better place. They don't want it more than they want to be comfortable. And you cannot change that in them. So whenever they see your success, they're going to find some sort of scapegoat to put it on that why you're successful. And that's why a lot of times these people are entitled. They tend to become entitled to who you are and what you've built. They feel like they're owed something for being in your life at some point in time, which is the craziest thing to me. Like, you weren't there when it was hard. You weren't there when I was by myself, grinding my ass off into the fucking ground. But now that I'm up, you want to be around? You don't remember those nights where I was alone, when no one wanted to fuck with me, when nobody cared about who I was? Where were you at? Secondly, it's the people who you meet that are below you. And when I say below you, it's more of a mental thing than anything. Let me give you an example. Let's look at Stephen Hawking. He was a very brilliant mind with some questionable ways, but either way, 99% of men will agree to this. No matter how smart or rich or accomplished he was, none of us would want to be in this position compared to our own. So let's say you're at a fancy restaurant for Valentine's Day with your girl, right? And you see him pull up to the restaurant by himself. You have no envy or jealousy because you realize that he is no threat to your ego. There really is no opportunity there for him to challenge your own beliefs and who you are. But now let's say Chad pulls up in a Rolls Royce and you're driving a Honda Civic and he goes into the same restaurant and your girl's staring up him the whole time. You're gonna instantly start thinking about why he's not shit and why he is gifted and why he's lucky and all this weird shit. You're gonna start feeling a certain type of way because it's natural for us as humans to feel envious. The biggest thing that's gonna separate a hater and a person like me is when I see a dude like that pull up, I'm gonna think in my head, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it. Respect to him for putting that much work in to afford these things or even maintain what he has. So now the first pitfall of self-improvement was about envy, but the second one is the hardest to endure. Number two. This is the hardest pill to swallow about self-improvement. It's easily the biggest thing that makes men quit or just take long breaks. It's the loneliness of self-improvement. When you're really dedicated to making a change and reaching your goals, you're gonna make more sacrifices than you can count. And one of the biggest areas that you're gonna really have to sacrifice on is your social life. You're not gonna really have time anymore to just spend it on frivolous conversations, gaming with the boys all day, chasing women nonstop that don't want you. When you get serious and you really start focusing, a lot of things are gonna be cut off from your life. And unfortunately, that tends to be your relationships a lot of the time. Let's just cut through the noise. If I'm being honest with y'all boys, I've sacrificed so much family time in the past 5-10 years that it's kind of hard for me to think about at times, because it's like, damn, what is it gonna be worth it one day for me to say that I had to sacrifice everything to get to where I want to be at? Most self-improvement content creators aren't going to tell you about the sacrifices because it would deter you from wanting to be on this grind, which is understandable. I have over 5 siblings in between my mother and my father. I don't have a relationship with any of them. It hurts to say that, and I don't want to make it seem like all of that was due to self-improvement, because it wasn't, but the distance and the mental effort it takes to be where I'm at right now require for me to put all my focus in one thing. You know, everybody's different. Some relationships need more energy and attention than others. And unfortunately for my life, a lot of my siblings need me to be around them in order for them to feel like I love them. And it hurts for me to say this because I wish things weren't this way. When you're really getting after something and you want it more than you want to breathe, sleep, party, and all that, you're willing to sacrifice everything. And that's why I'm telling you guys this pitfall up front, because I don't want you guys to be like me. I don't want you guys to be obsessed to the point where it's all or nothing, because it's not healthy. Life is not that black and white, which is what I hate about this space. Life is not just this black or white thing. Like, if you just say, I'm not gonna do something, I'm just not gonna do it anymore. It's just not that simple, bruh. Would you say you have an active social life? I don't. The last time I had a social life was probably in 2019, but even still, I was going to school full time. I was a full-time shift manager at a restaurant, and I was going out maybe once or twice on the weekends at night. To me, a real social life is that a couple days out the week, you spend time talking to your friends and family, and then on the weekends, you hang out with your friends and family. If you live the sort of life that the top 10% of dudes live, you don't have that luxury of just spending the time and wasting time, which I wish I could, but it's just the truth. If you guys think the pitfall is bad, just wait till I tell you about what's next. When you start really self-improving and sacrificing and going after what you want, you're gonna start to have to build routines and habits that bring you close to that goal. And especially during the beginning of your journey, it's gonna be a lot of times where it's just hard work and confusion. It literally feels like a maze sometimes to me. It literally feels like, wow, how far am I from reaching my goals? How far am I away from being who I wanna be at? It's a scary thought to think about. Like, some days it feels like I'm making huge leaps to becoming who I wanna be, and some days it just feels like I'm running around in circles. And that's the shit they don't tell you about when you start self-improving. All you hear about is like, hey, work for a year and boom, you'll be where you wanna be at. Hey, work for 2 years, you'll be where you wanna be at. The bottom line is this: there is no timeline to success, which is why it becomes lonely, especially if you come from a place like I do. Where I come from, nobody will go through what I'm going through because nobody's willing to try. No one is willing to risk everything that they have to get to where they want to be at. And so you don't really relate with a lot of people. You don't really feel like a lot of people know what you're going through. Nobody really understands like how much I try and how much I'm working to get to where I want to be at. And that's where that loneliness becomes a huge pitfall, because for years you're gonna have just yourself to rely on. And if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you're not gonna succeed. It's the hardest thing in the world to continue to do something day in and day out and not see results of it. It's easy to grind for a month. It's easy to grind for a year if you know what's at the end, which is why me and other people succeeded in college very easily. I can go hard for a few months, get a 4.0 and graduate. But now when you tell me you need a sprint and the distance is unknown and it's not promised, that's when you start playing the game on very hard mode, because you don't know when your time's gonna come. Only thing you can control is what you do on a daily basis. And when you start off grinding, you don't know shit about shit. So you better be prepared to sit around and grind and go through the maze called life. And so take it from somebody like me who's been doing this for a long time, going through the loneliness by himself. There is really one big tip that I can tell you that'll keep you going forward. Realize that if you do not quit, you are gonna be free one day. I just realized that most people who are gonna go through this will quit in the beginning. They're gonna go through the loneliness for a few months, realize that like, hey, I was a lot happier, a lot more content when I wasn't going through this shit than I am now. It takes those sort of people quitting for us to be able to succeed in what we do. And just take it as all suffering, all pain that we go through is not forever. It's gonna end eventually. You're gonna come out the other end of the tunnel and you're gonna be like, damn, I really went through all that shit and this is where I'm at. And that's really when it's gonna be worth it. So now that we broke down the hardest part of self-improvement, let's answer the $1 million question. Is self-improvement worth it? So after the first couple of years of me hitting the gym, me exceeding in school, me just overall doing better than most of my peers, the people around me started saying, hey, you're really working really hard, congratulations. But at the same time, I just didn't feel the same way, weirdly enough. So after high school, I consistently felt like I was underperforming. And so after just multiple months and even a couple of years of just grinding and going through it, I discovered a simple truth that nobody in this space talks about. The benefits of self-improvement aren't gonna be as big as you might think they're gonna be, at least at first. I think ultimately in the long run, self-improvement is ultimately gonna give you all the benefits that you want, but during the short and even somewhat the intermediate stage of self-improvement, you're not gonna get as many results or big results as you might expect. A lot of times when we're young, when we start self-improving, we think that just because we're working hard, we're gonna instantly get what we want because we showed some sort of level of effort to get there. When I first started self-improving and looks maxing, mostly due to Killmonger and Black Panther, I thought I was gonna be the shit, bro. I thought I was gonna be the next Michael B. Jordan. I'm gonna be able to get any girl I want. These girls are gonna be breaking their grills over the way my body looks. I'm thinking I'm gonna be the next Don Juan of this shit. I didn't understand how complex power was at the time. I didn't realize that the reason why Michael B. Jordan got as many girls fiending over him as he did was more than just the way he looked. So the biggest thing about this pitfall, which is the unrealistic standards of self-improvement, is just realizing that it's gonna take you a lot of time and a lot of pain for you to be where you wanna be at. Like, it's gonna take you a lot more than you expect. Like nowadays, I got hoes who chase after me and all the sort of shit I wanted back then, but it comes after 5 years of self-improving, mentally, physically, and overall just establishing who I am and being confident in who I am. It took a lot of rejections, bro. If I'm being honest with you guys, it took a lot of rejections. I would love to sit here and tell you guys that it was easy, but it was not. It was hard every step of the way. There's a lot of times where you're self-improving and you're thinking like, this time is gonna be the one where I show who I am and I get what I deserve. And a lot of times, bro, you're gonna be let down. And you just gotta start looking at rejections and losses and L's as just attempts. And I wanna lastly leave you guys with this. Just to show you what I mean, that's gonna take a lot more time and effort. You go to school for 4 years, right? You spend 4 years of your life getting in debt, writing in books, just so you can get a job that you hate, that may pay you maybe 50K after you get out of school. You gotta realize that life is kind of unfair, and I don't wanna be pessimistic, but it just takes a lot more than what you'll think, which is kind of a good thing because at least everybody can't have what everybody has, but you have to be the kind of person who's willing to go after everything despite what reality will show you, because reality is often not fair if you can't tell already. I know a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. This shit is not fair, bro. But yeah, it's a lot of times where I thought, you know what, I deserve to have that, and I didn't get it. On this journey of self-improvement, you're gonna go through things that most motherfuckers don't come out the other side of. And that ultimately leads me to the question, is self-improvement worth it for you? Ultimately, when you have these conversations with yourself, you should ultimately be thinking like, what is gonna bring me joy at the end of my life? What is gonna make me content in life? Is it getting a lot of money, getting a lot of accomplishments? Is it just having family time and building family and living your life and enjoying what little life we have? These are the conversations that you must have with yourself in order to determine whether or not self-improvement is worth it. I went through too much personally for me to stop now, so I can't really tell you guys what I would do besides work on myself, because at the end of the day, I know where I wanna be at, where I wanna live, who I wanna ultimately be, and it requires me to go down this road, as lonely as it may be. Just dive deep into the conversations that you have with yourself and figure out what resonates with you. Either way, just make sure that whatever you do it to the best of your ability. So there you have it, the dark side of self-improvement part 2. If you guys haven't watched part 1, you need to make sure you guys avoid those pitfalls. With that said, I appreciate you guys watching. I'll holler back at you. Peace.